As the time for Moses' death approached, God permitted him to ascend into heaven and unveiled to him the future world. After Metatron transformed Moses' body into a fiery figure like unto the angels, he led him up to the 7 heavens. In the first heaven, Moses sees water standing in line, and windows to let in and out all the things pertaining to human life and its needs. In the second heaven, he sees the angels who control the clouds, the wind, the rain. In the third, the angels placed over vegetation. In the fourth, those over the earth, sun, moon, stars, planets, and spheres. In the fifth, angels half of fire and half of snow. In the sixth, the Irene and Kedushin. In the seventh, the Arabot, he sees the first angels, wrath and anger, then the angel of death, then the Hayat, standing before God, and finally an angel engaged in teaching the souls, which were created by God at that time. Gabriel then leads Moses into paradise. Here he sees the first guardian angel of paradise, sitting under the tree of life, who shows him several costly thrones erected in paradise, each surrounded by 70 angels, the thrones for the patriarchs, for the scholars who studied the law day and night for the sake of heaven, for the pious men, for the just, and for the repentant, and a throne of copper prepared for the wicked whose sons are pious. Finally, he sees the fountain of life, welling forth from beneath the tree of life, and dwelling into the streams, and 4 rivers flowing under each throne, the first of honey, the second of milk, the third of wine, and the fourth of pure balsam. As Moses is leaving paradise, a voice calls from heaven, "Moses, as thou hast seen the reward which is prepared for the just in the future world?" Turning his eyes to the throne of mercy, Moses saw God building the temple out of precious stones and pearls. He saw also the rays of the Godhead, and Messiah the son of David, with the Torah in his arms. Also his brother Aaron in priestly robes. Aaron imparted to Moses that his death was near at hand, whereupon Moses asked God for permission to speak with the Messiah. The latter then revealed to him that the sanctuary which God was then constructing was the Temple of Jerusalem, which would be established for Israel in the future world to endure for all eternity, and that God had shown the same Jerusalem to Jacob in his dream in Bethel. To Moses' question when the new Jerusalem would descend to earth, God replied, "I have not yet revealed the end to anyone. Should I reveal it to thee?" Thereupon Moses said, "Give me at least a hint from the events of history." And God answered, "After I have scattered Israel among all the nations, I will stretch out my hand to gather them in the second time from all the ends of the earth." Moses then joyfully departed from heaven, followed by the angel of death who demanded his soul. Moses refused to yield it, but finally God appeared to him, and he surrendered his soul to God willingly and cheerfully. Throughout scripture and extra-biblical text, angels appear to man in many forms. Although they are spiritual in nature, able to manipulate natural law, they can assume human form. Angels can be seen or classified in a number of rankings, but they often assume types of duties which can be divided into guardians, ministers, and messengers. Michael, the field commander of God, is an angel of extraordinary brilliance. He is classified as one of the chief princes, in Daniel comparing him to an assembly of ranked angels. His name means "who is like God," likely in a humble contrast. He is also appointed guardian for the nation of Israel. Michael, in addition to his humble yet general-like qualities, is titled as the Archangel. This title places him above most of the other angels, which is why he can also be seen in likeness to a military leader of an army of angels at war with Satan. Archangel does not necessarily limit the class of an angel, however, it instead denotes the special rank of this cherub angel. In Daniel, Michael is delayed while he battles the angel of Persia. In Jude, Michael is referenced to a dispute between Satan in which they fight over the body of Moses. Michael, in this clash, rebukes his adversary, Satan, in the name of the Lord and not by his own might. Gabriel is the only other angel named specifically in the Bible. His name means Mighty One of God. He is spoken of as the angel of great strength and unusual speed. He describes himself in the book of Luke as "I am Gabriel, who stands in the presence of God." He is often seen as a messenger. However, he can also be personified, both man-like and in appearance causing great trouble and fear upon those who see him. Where Michael is seen as God's champion, Gabriel is usually seen as God's messenger, who appears in times when God's divine plan unfolds. For this reason, Gabriel can be seen as a special messenger operative, swiftly bearing God's message and revelation. Other angels, not specifically named, frequently bear drawn swords or destroying weapons in their hands. They can be seen riding on horses, carrying out special missions and tasks laid before them. A terrible angel is described in 1 Chronicles as standing between the earth and heaven, having a drawn sword in his hand. In the book of Daniel, a reference is made to an angel whose body also was like beryl, and his face as appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms as his feet like in color of polished bronze, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. Angels are referred to in connection with their special missions, as for instance, the angel which hath redeemed, an interpreter, the angel that destroyed, messenger of the covenant, and the angel of the presence. When, however, the heavenly host is regarded in its most comprehensive aspect, a distinction is made between the cherubim, the seraphim, the living creatures, the wheels, and Arlam, the meaning which is unknown. God is described as riding on the cherubim, and as the Lord of hosts who dwelleth between the cherubim, while the latter guard of the way of the tree of life. The seraphim are described by Isaiah as having 6 wings and residing in the presence around God, surrounding him with flaming fire and glorious worship. However, not all angels have remained holy. Some have been cast out of heaven or left their original place of abode. These angels are referred to as fallen angels, or those that kept not their first estate. Satan, named the prince of the air, possibly could mean that he dwells in the outermost parts of space. Satan's fall from heaven is symbolically described in Isaiah, in which we can draw conclusions as the fall of Satan and his human pupils he uses, often proud evil kings of the earth. Other alleged origins of the fallen angels stem from shrouds of mystery, when some of the angels descended upon earth to teach mankind. These angels revealed themselves in taking physical formed bodies, became enchanted by the beauty of women, and fell into lustful temptations. This was the beginning of a mass corruption of the pre-flood earth. The Nephilim were born, hybrid beings meant to genetically corrupt mankind and corrupt the seed of David, the line of David through his blood. The Bible refers to them in unison as the Nephilim, mighty men of great strength and stature. These Nephilim are hinted in the Bible and occupied much of the ancient lands, occupying great kingdoms, spreading vile sacrifices of children and all sorts of defilement. Many of these giants were unable to live at peace with each other, often consuming one another's flesh and cannibalizing their whole tribes and settlements. The giants often found themselves accepted as champions of great empires over fear of opposing such mighty warriors. The spirits of the Nephilim are now known as demons. They sometimes occupy and inhibit special tasks, much like the heavenly host. The spirit of Moloch is one such ancient pagan god of sacrifice, which is alive today as a spirit of abortion. These evil spirits seek to ruin mankind and draw with them the deception in all sorts of astronomical signs and wonders. Angels often appear throughout apocalyptic and extra-biblical texts and fragments. Although these texts are not inspired, they often give us a broader spectrum of historical and supernatural mysteries. The legends and stories of these fragmented pieces are not to be taken completely factual. Historically, ancient texts are compiled in the number of copies and versions found and preserved throughout time. The Bible is one such piece of multiple works that has been by far the most preserved pieces in existence, outclassing any other historical work that has ever been compiled and distributed. Therefore, scholars and modern historians affirm the events and existence of the real identity of Jesus Christ. With textually and doctrinally accurate copies ranging from both the earliest pieces to the latter, both archaeological and secular artifacts and compilations pronounce undeniably actual events of the scripture. Then I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll with writing on both sides, and sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming in a loud voice, "Who is worthy to break the seals and open the scroll?" But no one in heaven, or on earth, or under the earth could open the scroll, or even look inside it. I wept and wept, because no one was found who was worthy to open the scroll or look inside. Then one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. See, the Lion, the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its 7 seals." Then I saw a lamb, looking as it had been slain, standing at the center of the throne, encircled by the 4 living creatures and the elders. He went and took the scroll from the right hand of him who sat on the throne. And when he had taken it, the 4 living creatures and 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. Each one had a harp, and they were holding golden bowls full of incense, which are prayers of God's people. And they sang a new song, saying, "You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, because you were slain, and with your blood you purchased for God persons from every tribe and language and people and nation. You have made them to be a kingdom of priests to serve our God, and they will reign on the earth." Then I looked and heard a voice of many angels numbering thousands upon thousands, and 10,000 times 10,000. They encircled the throne and the living creatures and the elders. In a loud voice they were saying, "Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and wealth and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and praise." Then I heard every creature in heaven, and on earth, and under the earth, and on the sea, and all that is in them, saying, "To him who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb, be praise and honor and glory and power forever and ever." The 4 living creatures said, "Amen," and the elders fell down and worshipped. The angel said to me, "These words are trustworthy and true. The Lord, the God who inspires the prophets, sent his angel to show his servants the things that must soon take place. Look, I am coming soon. Blessed is the one who keeps the words of this prophecy, written in this scroll." I, John, am the one who heard and saw these things. And when I had heard and seen them, I fell down to worship at the feet of the angel who had been showing them to me. But he said to me, "Don't do that. I am a fellow servant with you and your fellow prophets, and with all who keep the words of this scroll. Worship God." Then I heard the angels chanting, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory." I saw on 4 sides of the Lord of Spirits 4 presences different from those that sleep not, and I heard the voice of those 4 presences as they gave glory before the Lord. The first, Michael, merciful and long-suffering, blesses the Lord of Spirits forever and ever. The second, Raphael, set over the diseases of children of men, blesses the elect one, the Messiah, and the elect ones who cleave to the Lord of Spirits. The third, Gabriel, set over all the powers, intercedes on behalf of the inhabitants of the earth. And the fourth, Uriel, set over repentance and hope of eternal life, prevents the Satans from accusing men. These 4 stand near the crystal throne of God, which is encircled by flaming fire, seraphim, cherubim, and ophanim. These beings are referred to as those that sleep not,